Now, the former special counsel who questioned President Biden and concluded he was a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory will himself be questioned on Capitol Hill today. Former U.S. Attorney Robert Hur had been appointed to investigate the president's handling of classified material. Now everyone's mad at him. Scott McFarland's on Capitol Hill following it. Scott, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Tony. The president and his supporters were quick to criticize Robert Hur's characterization of the president's age and memory. It is sure to be a marathon hearing with heated arguments just as the general election is beginning.
Former special counsel Robert Hur's report last month found no criminal charges were warranted against President Biden over his handling of classified records that date back to his time as vice president.
I did not break the law. Period.
Hur controversially added Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview with him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
You think it was appropriate?
I think it was unnecessary for him to do that. It wasn't part of the bottom line as to why he didn't bring charges.
GOP lawmakers are expected to grill Hur, a Republican tapped by the Attorney General to oversee the probe, about what they call a double standard against former President Donald Trump, who has been criminally charged over his alleged mishandling of documents.
We will now introduce today's witness. The Honorable Robert Hur was appointed as a special counsel in January 2023 to investigate the removal and retention of classified documents discovered at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. He previously served as the Principal Associate Deputy Attorney General at the Department of Justice and as the United States Attorney for the District of Maryland. We will begin by swearing you in. Mr. Hur, would you please stand? Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief, so help you God? Let the record reflect that the witness has answered in the affirmative. Thank you, and you can be seated. Please know that your written testimony will be entered into the record in its entirety. Accordingly, we ask that you summarize your testimony. Mr. Hur, you may begin with your opening statement. Make sure you got that mic on, if you could, Mr. Hur. Thank you.
Yeah, where's Tom Cotton? You know what I mean? Where's Tom Cotton when you need him to be like, what kind of Chinese are you? I've encountered many different kinds of Chinese in my day. I've encountered the Singaporean Chinese, and I've encountered the Japanese Chinese. So tell me, what kind of Chinese are you?
I'm privileged to have served our country for the majority of my career, a decade and a half, most of those years with the Department of Justice. I've served in these roles with gratitude as the son of immigrants to this country, the first member of my family to be born here. My parents grew up in Korea and were young children during the Korean War. My father
Oh, so he's that kind of Chinese. Got it. You can't get that past me, okay? He them Southern Chinese, them Korean kind.
being hungry and grateful for the food that American GIs shared with him and his siblings. My mother fled what is now North Korea in her own mother's.
This is very Yakuza plot point. The secret Korean.
I resolved to do the work as I did all my work for the department. Fairly, thoroughly.
Okay, a boring, I don't care. This guy's literally a Republican. He obviously has to like give his backstory. Now, for people who are wondering like, why is he giving his backstory? It's because of the jokes that I've been making. Because while I'm making jokes about how he's like secretly Chinese or whatever, there are people who unironically are constituents of the likes of Jim Jordan and whatnot who do believe that. I'm obviously joking about the stupidity of the Republican Party, but there are very valid concerns here. If you are not like immediately white presenting, you're going to have to give a whole backstory about how much you love American dick, how much you dick ride for imperialism, how much you would personally execute enemies of the state if you had the capacity to. Because if you don't do that, they're going to be like, what kind of Chinese are you, boy? And then continue along with that narrative. Yeah, he's essentially he's explaining why he is an Asian man. That's what he's doing, which is unfortunately something you have to do. That's the reason. It's boring. It's whatever. It's basically him explaining his bona fides, right? As a not white. Beyond that, he's also a Republican, so that's like extra funny that the Republicans are going to grill him now and be like, why did you let Biden off the hook? Like, are you in the pocket of big China, or are you in the pocket of big Joe Biden, or are you in the pocket of both at the same time? You know, I don't really believe convincingly that you haven't sufficiently shown me that you're not Asian. You know, these are going to be real concerns coming from the Republican Party. So that's where we're at. I'm going to skip through some of the stuff. He's like, yeah, I love this.
In other words, I needed to show my work, just as I would expect any prosecutor to show his or her work explaining the decision to prosecute or not. The need to show my work was especially strong here. The Attorney General had appointed me to investigate the actions of the Attorney General's boss, the sitting President of the United States. I knew that for my decision to be credible, I could not simply announce that I recommended no criminal charges and leave it at that. I needed to explain why. My report reflects my best effort to explain why.
It's also like an additionally funny thing that here's an extra funny moment for America and American perspectives, but like a lot of dudes don't fuck with China. A lot of Asian people who are not from China don't fuck with China at all, right? It is the same dynamic between like Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Cubans. They all fucking hate one another, but like in the eyes of the broader white population, no one makes that fucking distinction. No one's like, oh, you're Puerto Rican and you're not Cuban. That's very different. Like they don't. You're like, okay, what kind of Mexican are you? That's the opinion of the American white person, right? When they encounter someone. And the same goes for like people being like, I don't fuck with the Chinese or I don't fuck with the Japanese, whatever, right? And obviously, like nobody fucks with China in that area, which is really funny because when they come here, though, they're still Chinese. Okay, in the eyes of the broader American public, they're fucking Chinese. You can talk about how much you hate the Chinese, how much you hate China, but you're still Chinese in the eyes of the white Americans. They will never understand the difference. Vietnamese, you're Chinese, different kind of Chinese, but you're still Chinese. You're Thai, also Chinese. Okay, Indonesian, Muslim Chinese. They don't make this distinction. They literally, it's all Chinese. Just like you're all Mexican if you are brown. Okay, so if you're Asian, and in this chat, you probably don't have like a lot of xenophobic perspectives regardless. But Asian Americans that also play into like the anti-China sentiment don't realize that they're cooking themselves pretty fucking hard. What if I'm Filipino? Okay, Filipino, only category where you are both Mexican simultaneously and Chinese. Filipino, Pinoy gang is the epicenter of the global Latina belt. Indians, Arab, Muslim. Indians broadly get categorized as terrorists in the United States of America. That's like, war on terror, baby, which is, again, ironic, especially if you have parents, if you're Indian and you have parents that are like Modi supporters and you've like your parents will like sometimes play a role in the Islamophobic sentiment and then not realize that like you're also being harmed from said Islamophobic sentiment because Americans don't know what you are. Yeah. Remember, the first Islamophobic hate crime post 9/11 was against a Sikh man. This person was not a Muslim. He was Sikh. And, turns out racists don't make that distinction. They don't care. You're 100% right. There's this asshole streamer who always says how everyone's Turkish, generalizers, man. Someone in your comments on TikTok said, I need his Arab thighs, so you also get characterized that way. Yeah. Again, Americans, not very good at understanding the nuances and complexities of different ethnicities. Obviously, unless you're like white. They know the difference between an Irish person and an English person and a German person, right? But they will never understand in the same way the difference between a Turkish person and like an Iranian person or someone from Syria, right? Like they just broadly categorize all of that as like, okay, Muslim guys, I think.
I declined to recommend charging President Biden. I analyzed the evidence as prosecutors routinely do by assessing its strengths and weaknesses, including by anticipating the ways in which the president's defense lawyers might poke holes in the government's case, if there were a trial, and seek to persuade jurors that the government could not prove his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. There has been a lot of attention paid to language in the report about the president's memory, so let me say a few words about that. My task was to determine whether the president retained or disclosed national defense information willfully. That means knowingly and with the intent to do something the law forbids. I could not make that determination without assessing the president's state of mind. For that reason, I had to consider the president's memory and overall mental state and how a jury likely would perceive his memory and mental state in a criminal trial. These are the types of issues that prosecutors analyze every day. And because these issues were important to my ultimate decision, I had to include a discussion of them in my report to the Attorney General. The evidence and the president himself put his...
Same with the religion. When someone asks me where I'm from, I say Palestinian, and they're like, you're Muslim? Nothing wrong with that. And I say, no, I'm Christian. And they replied, there's Christians in the Middle East. Yeah, it is additionally funny because, like, the Palestinian Christians are literally, like, that's it. That's the OG Christianity. That's where it began. Are you fucking serious? It's so funny that people are just like, people will be like, I'm Christian. Wait, what? You're fucking brown and you're Christian? It's like, dude, they invented it. What are you talking about? They literally invented Christianity. Hello. Those are like the OG. The fuck do you think Jesus was? Motherfuckers really think Jesus was white as hell, dude. It's crazy.
His memory squarely at issue. We interviewed the president and asked him about his recorded statement. Quote, I just found all the classified stuff downstairs, end quote. He told us that he didn't remember saying that to his ghostwriter. He also said he didn't remember finding any classified material in his home after his vice presidency. And he didn't remember anything about how classified documents about Afghanistan made their way into his garage. My assessment in the report about the relevance of the president's memory was necessary and accurate and fair. Most importantly, what I wrote is what I believe the evidence shows and what I expect jurors would perceive and believe. I did not sanitize my explanation, nor did I disparage the president unfairly. I explained to the Attorney General my decision and the reasons for it. That's what I was required to do. I took the same approach when I compared the evidence regarding President Biden to the department's allegations against former President Trump. There, too, I called it like I saw it. As a prosecutor, I had to consider relevant precedents and to explain why different facts justify different outcomes. That is what I did in my report. I'm confident the analysis set forth in chapters 11, 12, and 13 of my report provides a thorough evaluation and explanation of the evidence, and I encourage everyone to read it to inform.
Boring. Here are some highlights, I guess, from it before we get to Ben Shapiro saying no one should ever retire. First, Jim Jordan just roughly showed roughly 10 minutes of a video of Biden talking for reasons that escape me, and Nader dinged him on it immediately. Lol. Okay, come on, Aaron. You know why he showed it. He showed it to be like, why is this interview happening? Let's ask ourselves. Is it because conservatives are really interested in the truth about Biden's mental faculties? No. No, it's because they want to be like, look how old Biden is. It is the same principle behind how beneficial it is for the Biden camp for Trump to constantly be in legal trouble. It plays into the meta. The meta is, as it stands, Biden is old and he's demented. The meta on the Trump side is, as it stands, Trump is a criminal and a threat to democracy. So both sides are going to be pushing that note as hard as they possibly can if they want to fucking win. And the Republicans love doing this shit. They love utilizing the congressional power that they have for like all this bullshit, okay? The classic fucking small government conservatives that always are penny pinching and wanting to do austerity for the fucking working poor that spend millions and millions of dollars investigating nonsensical shit that benefits them politically. Kevin McCarthy very famously said that the Benghazi trials, which literally lasted a longer time than 9/11 trials. Remember, Benghazi as a trial was longer and more expensive than the fucking 9/11 Commission. Kevin McCarthy very shamelessly and very openly once said, nobody was talking about Benghazi, and now everybody can't stop saying Benghazi. We did that shit. Openly, he said that. It's not like they hide it. You know what I mean? They do it on purpose. And that's precisely what's going on here. It's political theater. Now, is Biden old? Yes. Is Biden old? Abso-fucking-lutely. Okay. Is he senile? Definitely.
Thank you, everybody. We're going to need everybody to hold for a moment.
Nadler starts off, House representatives may be desperate to convince America that the white conservative men are on the losing end of a two-tier justice system, a theory that appeals to the MAGA crowd but has no basis in reality.
House Republicans may be desperate to convince America that white conservative men are on the losing end of a two-tiered justice system, a theory that appeals to the MAGA crowd but has no basis in reality. But your comments today make me wonder if you have read the special counsel's report at all. The Hur report does help us draw a distinction between President Biden and Donald Trump, just not the one.
Conservatives hate gays but love theater. Yeah, that's why they hate gays. Because the gays slay in the theater front and they want to dominate theater. That's why. It's resentment that they do not have the natural skills that the gays have. They're jealous.
You want. Two distinctions, actually. First, the report is clear that, quote, at no point did the special counsel find evidence that Mr. Biden intended or had reason to believe the information would be used to injure the United States or to benefit a foreign nation, close quote. With respect to the classified documents found in President Biden's possession, quote, the decision to...
So that's the real reason they got rid of Santos? Yeah, because he was too good. He was too good. He was too good at, he had the natural talent for it.
Decline criminal charges was straightforward, close quote. And with respect to the special counsel's investigation, quote, Mr. Biden turned in classified documents to the National Archives and the Department of Justice, consented to the search of multiple locations, including his homes.
Nadler put a brutal supercut of Trump gaffing and shorting out. Oh, God. I hate all of this. Raskin, what America sees today is evidence of one president who believes in the rule of law and works to protect it, and one who has nothing but contempt for the rule of law and acts solely in pursuit of his own. This stuff is so boring, dude. Okay, I'm gonna skip this. I'm gonna skip the story. It's just like, who gives a shit? Wait, what was this one? Yeah, I'm skipping. I'm skipping this part.
Recognize the gentleman from Florida. 5 minutes.
February 8th, the White House. Question, Mr. President, why did you share classified information with your ghostwriter? The President, I did not share classified information. I did not share it. I guarantee I did not. That's not true, is it, Mr. Hur?
That is inconsistent with the findings based on the evidence in my report.
Yeah, so it's a lie. It's just what regular people would say, right? Yeah, all right. So the next one. And all the stuff that was in my home.
If I'm Matt Gaetz, I'm not grilling a fucking prosecutor that hard. If I got that many fucking skeletons in my closet and there's an ongoing ethics investigation into my misconduct, maybe I'm not going after the fucking prosecutors that hard. I'm just saying. Maybe I'm trying to play nice, okay? If I got Venmo receipts to like a 17-year-old girl being like, oh, this is for travel, I'm probably not, me personally, I'm probably not going after prosecutors this aggressively. Just saying, because he's probably got some other homies that may be investigating you soon. You know what I mean? Prosecutors know one another.
Was in filing cabinets that were either locked or able to be locked. That wasn't true either, was it?
That was inconsistent with the findings of our investigation.
Another lie, people might say, right? Because what you put in your report was among the places Mr. Biden's lawyers found classified documents in the garage was a damaged open...
Why has he got a Yakuza pin? Oh my God, it does look like a Yakuza pin. That's funny.
I also want to go to this Biden Penn Center. Like, did it give concern to you that the Biden Penn Center, where all this classified stuff was being mishandled, was being floated by foreign governments?
Congressman, we were concerned with getting to the bottom of all of the classified documents that were recovered during the course of our...
Yeah, but what bothers me is that the money that was paying for the place where the documents were being inappropriately held, it was the Chinese and it was other foreign countries. Did that play into your analysis? Did you look into the $1 billion in foreign funding sources at the Biden Center at UPenn, for example?
Congressman, we conducted a thorough, impartial, and fair investigation, and we were very, very concerned with getting to the bottom of all the relevant questions relating to the recovered documents.
Did you look into the fact that the Chinese were floating the place where this guy was keeping the documents unsecure? Yes or no?
Congressman, to the extent that we identified evidence that was relevant and significant to our investigation, we put it in our report.
Okay, well, it seemed relevant to me, maybe not to you.
Yeah, because what kind of Chinese are you, boy, is literally the underlying theme. Dude, come on. Come on, dude. Yeah, I don't know. You're looking real Chinese right now.
Another thing that seemed relevant to me is this ghostwriter, right? So the ghostwriter purposefully deletes this evidence that seems to be like show
lowering the
culpability of
volume so my
Biden's
volume
crimes,
matches
and
it.
you don't charge
Sorry.
him. Why did you not charge the ghostwriter with obstructing justice and deleting evidence?
Well, for a number of reasons that are laid out in the report. But in brief, Congressman, yes, when we interviewed the ghostwriter, he did.
It's so fucking weird watching people try to maintain the professional veneer of their job. Having to talk to Republicans who are like, true or false, Joe Biden's a pedophile who sucks adrenochrome directly from the brain stems of immigrant babies. Yeah. I mean, this is the most professional way that you can make this assertion too. It's literally like, it's literally like, yes. Have you investigated the criminal misconduct of the Chinese Communist Party secretly storing Biden's classified documents at UPenn? Like, you just made that up. You are trying to tie normal things that exist in the real world back into something that is like indecent and scary.
Tell us, and I'm trying to get the exact language, that one of the things on his mind, one of the things he was aware of, was that I had been appointed special counsel and was conducting an investigation.
Right, so he didn't, just so everybody knows, the ghostwriter didn't delete the recordings just as a matter of happenstance. Ghostwriter has recordings of Biden making admissions of crimes. He then learns that you've been appointed. He then deletes the information that is the evidence, and you don't charge him.
That is reflected in the report, and one of the reasons.
Like, what does somebody have to do to get charged with obstruction of justice by you? If like deleting the evidence of crimes doesn't count, what would meet this?
I might be getting lost in the right-wing framing of this, but that part does seem a little odd to me. Like, I don't personally know why they wouldn't look into the fucking interviewer like deleting records. That part is definitely
standard.
So, Congressman, as we state in the relevant chapter of the report, one of the things that Mr. Zwanitzer did not delete was transcripts of the recordings that he had created that included inculpatory evidence relating to Mr. Biden.
Oh, never mind. He also he literally still had the transcripts.
Oh,
Okay.
so if you destroy some evidence but not other evidence, that somehow absolves you of the.
No, dude, he has the transcripts. He probably didn't want what? The transcripts are all there. Okay, never mind. He very quickly clarified it for me. Now I understand. It's the same evidence.
The evidence you destroy. Here's what I see. Zwanniger should have been charged, wasn't. Biden and Trump should have been treated equally. They weren't. And that is the double standard that I think a lot of Americans are concerned about. I see my time's expired. I yield back.
I'm Steve Doocy.
Yeah, it seems like he
Chair now
didn't.
recognizes the
It seems like the evidence still very much is there. Watch, Representative Schiff has testy exchange with Robert Hur over Biden classified documents.
from California.
Said that you did not disparage the president in your report.
It's so funny because he's getting shellacked from both sides too. Because Shifty Schiff, more like Adam shit, am I right? Is gonna rip into him because he's gonna say you called Biden old, and that's not within your purview. To which he responds with, "No, it is. I have to give, as a third-party investigator, a decent reason as to why I am dropping the case and not further prosecuting him, because I don't think that this is prosecutable. And this is one of the assessments that I made." And then he's going to say, couldn't you have made that assessment without fucking saying he's old, blah, 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 blah.
But of course, you did disparage the president. You disparaged him in terms you had to know would have a maximal political impact. You understood your report would be public, right?
I understood, based on comments that the Attorney General had made, that he had committed to make as much of my report public as consistent with legal policy and legal.
You think the fact that he's senile is a good reason not to prosecute him? It's not just this fact that he's senile. He's not saying that Biden is senile. He's saying that Biden reads in front of a jury as an old guy with a kind heart, and that his misremembering of key details of his own life plays a role in putting together a case that would definitely make him look like he had honest intentions. That's it. It's his assessment that ultimately, if this was to be tried in a court of law in front of a fucking jury of his peers, the jury would look at him and go, yeah, this guy's like, he wasn't deliberately, voluntarily keeping classified documents away keeping classified documents for illicit purposes, and simply is an old grandpa, partially because he cooperated with the authorities immediately, and also partially because he is, like, look, he's just literally misremembering key details of his life. He's like old. His heart is in the right place, but he's old. That's what he's saying. He's not able to handle questioning, but he runs the country. Guys, I totally am in agreement with you. I think that Biden is too old.
Requirements.
And you could have chosen just to comment on the president's particular recall vis-a-vis a document or a set of documents, but you decided to go further and make a generalized statement about his memory, didn't you?
Congressman, I could have written my report theoretically in a way that omitted references to the president's memory, but that would have been an incomplete and improper report, and that it did not reflect my analysis.
You could have written your report with comments about his specific recollection as to documents or a set of documents, but you chose a general pejorative reference to the president. You understood when you made that decision, didn't you, Mr. Hur, that you would ignite a political firestorm with that language, didn't you?
Congressman, politics played no part whatsoever in my investigative steps.
But you understood nevertheless, didn't you, Mr. Hur?
This is so dumb. You're like mad at him for dropping the fucking case then. Should he have kept going? This is such a classic catch-22 where you're mad at him, but like you're mad at him for the reasons as to why he dropped the case, but not mad at him for dropping the case in general. You can't have it fucking both ways. You know what I mean? Republicans are really good at double binds. This man is not a Republican. He's a Democrat. The person he is actually cooking here is a Republican. He's mad because he took a shot at him when he didn't need to. He was giving red meat to the hogs, was he not? I think he is a classic middle of the ground Republican prosecutor. These guys care about the rule of law more than anything else. He's very similar to Robert Mueller in that regard. And ultimately, that's all he did. He did the middle of the ground, gave his honest assessment. I don't think he was like indecently and secretly in the pocket of the big Republican Party. I don't think that at all. If he was, then he would have said Biden is demented and we're going to continue with this prosecution. Hello? He's not wrong to make this assessment. Guys, not only is he not wrong to make this assessment, his track record, as we looked at on the show before, implies that he is like the classic fucking Republican prosecutor who cares about the institutions. I think it's crazy that the Democrats are still getting mad on top of this, on top of everything else, being like, why did you mention that he was old? I think it's understandable to mention that he is old because of how it would read to a jury, because it's a part of the argument that he's making, because as a special prosecutor, he has to make an argument as to why his assessment is that there should be no further, like this shouldn't go to court.
Mr. Hur, you cannot.
It paints a picture that Biden maybe did intentionally keep documents initially, but he's too old at this point to prove that original intention.
Not tell me you're so naive as to think your words would not have created a political firestorm. You understood that, didn't you, when you wrote those words, when you decided to include those words, when you decided to go beyond specific references to documents? You understood how they would be manipulated by my colleagues here on the GOP side of the aisle and by President Trump. You understood that, did you not?
Congressman, what I understood is the regulations that govern my conduct as special counsel.
And those regulations
required me to write a confidential report for the Attorney General,
which you knew would not be confidential.
My decision, and that is what I did, Congressman. I followed the rules.
You knew it would not be confidential.
I followed them.
You knew it would not be confidential, didn't you?
Sir, the regulations required me to write a confidential report explaining my decision to the Attorney General,
which you knew would be released.
It was up to the Attorney General to determine
you understood it would be released, did you not?
Would be released consistent with DOJ policy.
You understood it would be released. You understood it would be released.
What's the argument here? That at the top of the hour, there isn't a 3-minute ad break? Isn't his decision better for the Republicans because it's a lose-lose for Biden and gives their two-tier justice system narrative legs? My point was, I do not think that this guy is secretly thinking like, ooh, how can I suit the needs of the Republican Party? The fact that Hur's background suggests that he is cognizant of not appearing impartial tells me that his report is intentionally written to be this controversial but appear unbiased. I think he wanted to show, like, really hammer on the point that he is an unbiased, impartial arbiter And that's the reason why he wrote the report in the way that he did. He both sides it. Yes. And the Democrats are mad that he both sides it too hard. And I feel like it makes sense for him to both sides it the way that he did. I don't think that he is like secretly in the pocket of the Republican Party. Just like, and I will say this as well, James Comey was not, in my opinion, legitimately secretly operating at the behest of the Republican Party when he came out literally right before the election, all the way back in 2016, with the second investigation. These guys are aggressively centrist. They want to dispel the rumors or the notion that there's any kind of partisanship at play. So in that situation, in my opinion, they cook it a little bit too hard. I don't know, really skeptical of his assessment that Biden was too old to have intent. I mean, Biden may not be all there, but he's at least 90% there. I think that much is clear now after Sodu. Damn, that State of the Union really did a number on liberal brains, I think. Is it possible to re-roll for new candidates after the election? Yes. You can re-roll if they die.
Understood from the Attorney General's public comments that he would make as much of my report public as he could, consistent with legal requirements and DOJ
And you also understand DOJ policy that you are to take care not to prejudice the interests of the subject of an investigation, right?
That is generally one of the interests that DOJ policy.
You could argue that his opinion was predetermined. More important was the influence on the public throughout his use of language senile regarding Biden. I think that legal documents should be sterile and neutral in stating facts. Senile is not that. Yes, dude, he's making a biased assessment based on the evidence presented. He is not a fucking licensed medical professional. This is not a court. In a court of law, you would bring a licensed medical professional to make that assessment. But if you are the prosecutor, you can make that assessment on your own when you are dealing with the outcomes of a prosecution. If you take this to court, how it will read by the jury is an assessment that you will definitely make, especially when you are an outside third-party investigator that was contracted by Biden's DOJ. This, in my opinion, like the reason why he said that in his report is because, well, one, Biden is very old, okay? And he will read very old to a jury. That is true. And also because he is supposed to be, there's a reason why he's a Republican guy, okay? There's a reason why Merrick Garland brought him as the third-party investigator, because he's a fucking Republican. If you're going to drop a case of mishandling classified documents, you have to make sure that you rid, at least in the public's eye, you rid yourself of any kind of potential biases at play. Yeah. And if you think that the American public thought that Biden is senile because of this report, you're crazy. They definitely already thought that. Thank you, Short Gamer Moth. You're absolutely correct. The American public already thought this. It's not like he's like creating a ground for like Americans to be like, wow, this is the first time I thought Biden is senile because of the fucking Hur report. Is crazy.
Policy requires that prosecutors respect.
And it was your obligation to follow that policy in this report, was it not?
It was also my obligation to write a confidential report for the Attorney General explaining completely my decision.
What you did write was deeply prejudicial to the interests of the president. You say it wasn't political, and yet you must have understood. You must have understood the impact of your words. You must have understood the impact of your decision to go beyond the specifics of a particular document, to go to the very general, to your own personal, prejudicial, subjective opinion of the president, one you knew would be amplified by his political opponent, one you knew that would influence a political campaign. You had to understand that. And you.
It's so funny that they're butthurt about him saying Biden is senile, because like it is the one thing that every American agrees with, including fucking people that are going to vote for Biden. Hello? Like, what are we talking about here? He might as well have written that the fucking the sky is blue in the report. It's like getting mad at that.
You did it anyway. And you did it anyway. And let me just go to some of the differences here between the president's conduct and Mr. Trump's. In the superseding indictment, on page 3, it says that Mr. Trump suggested that his attorney falsely represent to the FBI and grand jury that he did not have documents called for by the grand jury subpoena. You didn't find anything like that with respect to Mr. Biden, did you?
Congressman, I do not have the Trump indictment in front of me, but I need to address something that you said in your prior question. What you are suggesting is that I needed to provide a different version of my report that would be fit for public release. That is nowhere in the rules. I was to prepare a confidential report that was comprehensive and thorough of an
What is in the rules, Mr. Hur, what is in the rules is you don't gratuitously do things to prejudice the subject of an investigation when you're declining to prosecute. You don't gratuitously add language that you know will be useful in a political campaign. You were not born yesterday. You understood exactly what you were doing. It was a choice. You certainly didn't have to include that language. You could have said vis-a-vis the documents that were found at the university, the president did not recall. There is nothing more common. You know this, I know this. There is nothing more common with a witness of any age when asked about events that are years old to say, I do not recall. Indeed, they're instructed by their attorney to do that if they have any question about it. You understood that. You made a choice.
Now he's saying that Biden's saying, I do not recall, for like key details of his life, is actually a part of a technique that the defense uses in this situation. Yeah, you say that about entirely different. You say that about entirely different shit that would get you in trouble. You don't say that about things that are just like what you would have in like a lie detector test that creates a basis for what is truthful. Okay, which is, you know, questions about like questions about your family or whatever. Also, he used I do not recall against the defendant. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Majority Report went over this and saw that Biden didn't necessarily misremember when his son died, so I don't know about the narrative. But wouldn't just putting that in a report subject didn't remember make the report useless? But I think the message holds. The answer Biden gave are same if not similar to Trump's, yet Trump wasn't considered senile. Wait, what? The reason why, if Biden and Donald Trump answer in the same way in a deposition, the reason why Biden reads a different way is because of the things that came after. Trump voluntarily, willingly lied to his own lawyers, lied to everyone, including the investigators, about where the documents were, and voluntarily withheld additional documents after multiple inquiries. Obviously, his I do not recall moments don't matter all that much in the eyes of a jury in that circumstance when you're comparing Brandon's I do not recall with the motivations that Brandon very clearly had once the investigation was launched. Biden cooperated with the authorities completely. Trump didn't. So obviously, that plays a higher order of magnitude in the way that in the way that a court case would continue than a guy who did cooperate. That's a major difference. I think that's like basically, I think that's what basically plays a big role. Can't make it up. Experts say transcript shows Special Counsel Robert Hur lied about Biden. The full transcript undercuts Hur's argument that Biden could not remember his son's death and had poor memory. The full transcript of President Joe Biden's 5-hour interview with Special Counsel Robert Hur's investigators paints a more nuanced portrait of Biden's memory than the special counsel's report, according to the Washington Post, which noted that Biden doesn't come across as being absent-minded as Hur made him out to be. I think the funniest thing that could come out of this, is that, like, they have to follow. They launch another investigation, okay, with another special prosecutor, and they find that there was misconduct, and Hur was actually covering Brandon by saying he's senile, only to have an even more reactionary prosecutor come in. And basically, this time they're like, no, we have to go to court because he's very much mentally sane. Anyway, read full transcript of Robert Hur's classified Biden documents interview. Oh, come on, give me the highlights. I'd rather read the fucking high notes. The transcript could raise questions about Hur's depiction of the 81-year-old president having significant limitations on his memory. Hur in his report declined to charge Biden, arguing that it'd be difficult to convince a jury to convict with a memory that the special counsel described as faulty and poor, noting that Biden could not recall when his son Beau died or when he served as vice president. But Biden said exactly when his son died on the interview. What month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30, Biden said. When two others in the room chimed in with the year, Biden asked, was it 2015 when he died? Hur soon suggested taking a brief break, an offer Biden rejected before launching into a long explanation of Beau's death. Let me just keep going to get it done, Biden said. Okay, so he didn't actually remember it. Like, he didn't remember the exact date. So what? Like, his assessment is that he couldn't remember it, and the transcript makes it seem like he actually did 100% remember it. He just couldn't remember the year, and then someone chimed in with the year, which is normal. That's not, like, that crazy. It doesn't show, like, complete senility. But I could see someone who's trying to move to not prosecute Biden saying that this will read in a court of law as someone who is not great on his recollection. A part that many people don't understand, for the record, and here it is, by the way. So what was happening? What month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30th. Miss Cotton chimes in, 2015. Unidentified male speaker says 2015. President Biden says, was it 2015 he had died? Unidentified male speaker says it was May of 2015. President Biden, it was 2015. This is why it's a double bind that Democrats are actually cooking themselves over. Because you support Israel. What? Where'd you get that from? That's awesome. Some of the first timers are great. Guys, if you look at the transcript, I get why he said what he said. Alex Thompson writes, he's a national political correspondent at Axios. He wrote, Biden repeatedly asked for help remembering important dates with lawyers stepping in. When did I announce for president in 2019? If it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? In 2019, am I still vice president? Trump gets elected on November of 2017. Now, I'm not great at fucking dates like this as well. The difference is, if you are interested, for the record, if you are personally interested in presenting a narrative that Biden would read as old, his heart in the right place, which is something that many people are forgetting in his assessment. If people are if you want to make it seem like someone is old, but his heart is in the fucking right place, obviously, this is what you say. Oh, twice on the same day, Biden struggled to find the words for fax machine. You see where there's a printer and there's a, what do they call it? The machine that he asked until White House counsel Ed Siskel offered up, fax machine in both instances. While talking about the years 2017 and 2018, Biden said, remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying, and adds, and so what was happening, though? What month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30, before White House counsel offered that it was in 2015. Why is articles coming from salon.com clip chimping the transcripts to make it seem like he was totally fucking cognizant when the question being presented was about 2017 to 2018, long after his son had died? I genuinely don't understand why people are just like so desperate to run with the fucking narrative that Biden is like totally cognizant, and it is ridiculous for the special prosecutor to make this assessment that clears Biden, that literally drops the case. You're cooking yourself. What you have to understand is Biden is a Schrodinger's brain. It is at all times either immaculate or in shambles, depending on what helps the DNC. The transcript also appears to shine a light on Hur's claim that Biden could not remember when he served as vice president. My problem was I never knew where any of the documents or boxes were specifically coming from or who packed them, he said. Just did I get them delivered to me? And so I'm at this stage in 2009. Am I still vice president? Biden sought to clarify his answer, but one of Hur's deputies pushed to move on. During another point, Hur pointed to an image of a notebook related to Afghanistan. The date is 4/20/09, Biden said. Was I still vice president? I was, wasn't I? Yeah. Hur, in his testimony before the House Judiciary Committee on Tuesday, denied that he disparaged the president unfairly and claimed that the evidence and the president the president himself put his memory squarely at issue. National Security Attorney Bradley Moss predicted that Democrats are going to eat Hur alive at this hearing. I think Biden might be owed an apology, tweeted Zach reporter Zach Beauchamp. Politico's Kyle Cheney. Dude, Democrats love looking at a gift horse in the mouth and then slapping the horse in the fucking mouth. This is a gift. Just take it. It's so insane. I don't know. I just don't understand it. In which President Biden jokes with federal prosecutors about the thorough search of his home in Wilmington. I just hope you didn't find any risque pictures of my wife in a bathing suit, which you probably did. She's beautiful. That's funny. Bro, my grandma died like a year ago. I don't know what month or day it was. I loved her to death. Pardon me if I was too busy grieving to make notes. This is so stupid. Brother, you need to understand something. or sister, listen to me. Everyone has a hard time remembering key dates. I also do as well. It makes sense. This is not what is in question here. The problem is when you are talking about like parts of your life, let's say you were no longer in office and they're asking you a question about like a time frame that is 2 years after your grandma died. You would know that your grandma's not dead at that point. This is not about recalling exactly the date that your grandmother died. It's about thinking that your grandmother is alive 3 years after the fact. Do you get it? Context is important here because the question is being presented about his experiences in 2017 and 2018 where he thinks his son is still alive and being deployed, where his son has died 3 years ago at that point. Do you get it? And not only that, but the key thing that people are forgetting here is that his assessment is how this will read to a jury. Obviously, in his line of questioning, Biden is having a hard time consistently remembering key dates in his life. That will present in an identical fashion in a court of law to a jury that will see that line of questioning and Biden's like failure to answer key dates and key details of his life. That's what he is saying. He's saying that the jury will read him as senile but kind-hearted. His heart's in the right place, but you know, a little bit of senility goes a long way in presenting him as an old man who is seen in a sympathetic light. The irony here is that like a key part of Hur's assessment that clears him of impartiality in dropping this fucking case is what Democrats are cooking him on. Do you understand the issue at play here? Now, the media can look at this transcript and like rob it of the context, and they can do that, and they are doing that, it seems, right? To be like, no, Brandon is actually dynamic. He's actually super with it. Look at the State of the Union. You know, he was dynamic there. Clearly, that's not an old man who is senile. Remember that? That was really sick. It's he just didn't remember key details. Don't look at the context of the key details of what he like forgot. Neither Trump nor anyone in his family can recall a single thing in any of their depositions either. Yes. The difference there, however, is that Trump's lack of recollection will not read as someone who is a sympathetic figure who is just simply forgetting things. Because Trump very openly refused to cooperate with investigators. Biden did cooperate with investigators. This is a key context. This is what is the reason why one case sticks and the other doesn't. Do you guys understand this? While talking about the years 2017 and 2018, Biden said, remember in this time frame, my son has either been deployed or is dying, and adds, and so what was happening though? What month did Bo die? Oh God, May 30th, before the White House counsel offered that it was 2015. Guys, I want to remind everybody that you did not fall out of a coconut tree. You did not. You exist within the context of all the things that came before you. Just remember that. Context is important. The two-day interview took place in the immediate aftermath of October 7 Hamas attack on Israel. Biden's team has also noted he had excellent recall in several other parts of the interview and argued that the missteps were exaggerated and cherry-picked. The two fax machine exchanges with the White House, where the White House counsel, Ed Siskel, stepped in. And they open on the bottom too. So there's the top opens to shelving and the bottom opens to filling. So the bottom, so when you open this up, the first door there on the left, you see where there's a printer. And there's a, what do they call it? The machine that, fax machine. A fax machine. Yes, sir. And then the thing below, I don't use it anymore. I never use but all kidding aside, I have a library, and the library has two filing cabinets in it. And it has a built into the walls. And when I built that home, built into the walls, a space for a copy machine, for a, what do you call it when they send these? Fax machine. Fax machine. I have shelves that I have binders like this in it, and that I put together that aren't classified. They're about speeches that I made on this matter, speeches I made on that matter. So during this time, when you were living at Chainbridge Road and there were documents relating to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden Institute or the Cancer Moonshot or your book, where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on? Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 2018, that area? Yes, sir. Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so it was. And by the way, there was still a lot of people at that time when I got out of the Senate that were encouraging me to run in this period, except the president. I'm not, and not a mean thing to say. He just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. But if I had ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening, though? What month did Bo die? Oh, God, May 30th. Miss Cotton steps in and says 2015. An identified male speaker steps in and says 2015. President Biden, was it 2015 he had died? Remember, the time frame that they're talking about is 2017 and 2018. Okay, this is after Obama has told him not to run for president, which he revealed here, by the way, which is kind of cool that he openly mentions that. Very, very vindictive person that doesn't let go of certain things. That's another key detail here. Mr. Bauer, or I'm not sure the month, sir, but I think it was that year. Mr. Kirkbaum, that's right, Mr. President. And what's happened in the meantime, it was that, and Trump gets elected in November of 2017, unidentified male speaker, 2016, unidentified male 16. President Biden, 2016. All right. So why do I have 2017 here? That's when he left office, January of 2017. Yeah, okay. But that's when Trump gets sworn in then, January. I think when you look at the full context, I think it's a bit of a stretch for Salon and all these other articles to be written to make it seem like, no, he totally remembered everything. It's not necessarily that he remembers the month, which he clearly does. It's that he's fucking up the time frame where he thinks that his son is alive in 2017, 2018. Because like he was trying to say that he was still in, he was still in a tumultuous situation with his son. And that's like partially why he, doesn't recall the documents. But his son his son was nowhere near. He was dead for 2 years at this point. Hur's claim that Biden couldn't remember the day his son died was an outrageous lie, argued Tommy Vitor, a former Obama staffer and commentator. It's also cruel and irrelevant. Anyone who's experienced a loss like that can remember images, smells, bit of conversations. The pain is buried into you. Dates blend together because they're irrelevant. Attorney Andrew Loeffler tweeted, Hur lied. That's the only appropriate response. White House spokesman Ian Sams told CNN on Tuesday that Hur's opening statement to the committee was also misleading. I think it lays bare pretty clearly that the results of this 15-month investigation that was led by a Trump appointee prosecutor who was named special counsel by Brandon's own DOJ, by Merrick Garland, by the way. Hello? I found that there was no case here, he said. I think that some of those that language that you just laid out is a little bit misleading. In fact, later in the report, 200 pages in, not on page 2, but 200 pages in, he says very clearly that the evidence does not fully support the idea that he willfully retained classified documents. That was literally also in his assessment. It's very frustrating. That was also a part of Hur's assessment. I don't know why people are making it seem like this dude simply was just saying Biden's old, lol. Like, that's not what he was saying. He's saying Biden will read as old in the same line of questioning that we engaged in the conversation that we had, in the investigation that we concluded. The same line of questioning will happen in front of a court of law, in front of a jury, and the jury will see him as like, because he did not willfully retain the documents, you can present an argument that he just like doesn't remember. And that's why there is not a real good court case here. This discussion is so dumb and liberal. Yeah, it's very, very, very dumb and very, very, very liberal.